Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting on Wednesday, the 3rd of December. Can you note, please, that this meeting is being recorded but not live streamed, so the recording will be available later. When speaking, could you please move your microphone into position and speak directly into it like I'm trying to do? And when you've finished, please turn the microphone off. Evacuation procedure, we're not expecting a fire drill, and I think everybody in this room knows what needs to be done, but if you're out the building and gather opposite where Lloyd's Bank was, can you please make sure that your mobile phones are all switched off or on silent? You. And I've had apologies from Councillor Watkins, who unfortunately has got the dread lurgy that seems to be going round at the moment, and Councillor Hughes, who's having to look after a father-in-law. Declaration of interest. Has anybody got any declaration of interest that are not already on the council website? No? I'm moving on then. We've got the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of November. Is everybody happy with the contents of those minutes? Yeah. Okay, I'll sign them then. That. Public consultation. Then we've got County Councillor Keith Condacor on most of the items on here, so we'll deal with those as we get to them, and obviously any non-cabinet members if they wish to speak. So I'll move then on to item 6, adoption of Borough Plan and Local Development Scheme, and hand over to Councillor Benson. Thank you.
So some background information. On the 12th of February 2024, the submission version of the Borough Plan Review and supporting evidence base were submitted to the Secretary of State for Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government for independent examination by the Planning Inspectorate. 2 inspectors were allocated to examine the plan, and 3 blocks of hearing sessions were held between July and October 2024. These took place in the format of roundtable discussions with residents, stakeholders and interested parties, given the opportunity to comment on the matters, issues and questions posed by the inspectors. Following the conclusion of the hearing sessions, the inspectors confirmed in writing that the plan could be found sound, subject to modifications. A consultation on the main modifications took place between Monday the 2nd of June and Monday the 14th of July 2025. The responses were considered by the inspectors, and the inspectors' report was issued on 8th of October 2025. The inspectors' report concludes that the Borough Plan Review provides an appropriate basis for the planning of the borough, providing that the modifications recommended by the inspectors are made to the plan. The recommendation is therefore as set out before you, that contents of the inspector's report and schedule of modifications are noted, and that the Borough Plan Review is adopted incorporating the modifications. It is also recommended that the delegated powers are given to the Assistant Director for Planning in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and enforcement to issue the adoption statement and sustainability appraisal statement, as well as make any non-material updates that the final version of the Borough Plan is adopted. Upon adoption, the policies Borough Plan Review will supersede the existing Borough Plan policies and become the framework for decision making. The council has also sought to update the local development scheme to align with the proposed adoption of the Borough Plan Review, and acknowledge we are awaiting further updates from the government, which are anticipated before Christmas. On the new local plan system, therefore, the recommendation is to adopt the new local development scheme. So with that, I move the adoption of the recommendations set out in section 2 on agenda item 6.
Thank you, Councillor Benson. That's been proposed. Is that seconded? And Councillor Price, thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. I've been involved in this process for about 13 or 15 years, and it's an absolute nightmare what's happening to Nuneaton with all the extra housing and very little infrastructure. I know a lot of people want a lot of housing, but the way we're building it is just stupid. I mean, we're building lots of houses away from the main transport access. We're not providing the GP surgeries. We are providing schools, but we're filling the schools up with people from a long distance away. And then the people who live right next to a brand new school can't get a place in because the places are allocated as about a year before the school opens for the reception year or year 7, depending whether it's primary or secondary. So we're causing lots of transport issues because we're not phasing the school capacity to ramp up with the housing. We get no school capacity, then we get all of 1 year group, and it's causing horrendous transport issues. And there's ridiculousness, like Stockingford Academy is short of pupils. The Nuneaton Academy is short of pupils because of the way the school places and the planning is all working. And the infrastructure, we should have as part of this local plan a new railway station in Stockingford, a new station entrance into the Wellington end of the Nuneaton station, and none of that is getting funded. We have flooding issues across the borough where developers are building things not to spec. And we've got no money to go alongside this. And fundamentally, the housing numbers on which all this is based are incredibly flawed. And the government's new way of calculating basically takes a multiple of average earnings by work location to average house prices, which actually targets more housing to places with low income because of this ratio. So if houses are 10 times the earnings or 5 times, they use that to determine how many houses you need. And that doesn't solve the problem of the Nuneaton fundamentally doesn't have enough well-paid jobs. And nowhere in this local plan system does it focus on jobs. It focuses on housing. We have houses that are totally unaffordable to the local population. And the jobs that people have in the Nuneaton and Bedworth tend to be in Coventry, Hinckley, out of the borough, which then don't actually improve our local wages to local house prices income. So I really think we need to lobby government to change the way the equations work. And we need to lobby so we actually get the infrastructure we need to have more population. Yeah, massive increase in population in Bulkington. No cycle lane from Bulkington to Bedworth. Bedworth only has 1 train an hour on to Coventry. Yeah, the infrastructure is absolutely key. And the one picture someone showed me on Facebook recently was Gypsy Lane. How on earth do we build all those houses on Gypsy Lane and not have a pedestrian route across Wenbrook? Absolutely crazy.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. I must admit, on some of what you've said, I agree with you. So we'll have to see how it goes. Has anybody got any points of clarification for Councillor Condacor? No, thank you for that. Anybody else wish to say something? All right, thank Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I send my wishes to Councillor Watkins for a speedy recovery. I know what it's like when you're in a leadership position and your body lets you down, so to speak. I welcome the report. I think it is unfortunately later than the previous inspector from the 2018 one envisaged, and it meant that my administration had a lot of heavy lifting to do in terms of getting this moving. And I'm actually pleased that with some modifications that what we under my administration did has gone through. And I'm particularly proud that the policy that myself and my then cabinet member insisted on was a no green belt review. So no additional sites that were in there that we put forward were to be taken out of the green belt. And we had some significant pressure from interested parties and those who had a vested interest in wanting to have their land declassified as greenbelt. And it wasn't easy, but we got there in the end. So I am pleased to see that, because I know that that was a big frustration of residents under the first borough plan, that they saw their local greenbelt being sacrificed. And Coventry, who we were forced to take their overspill, didn't sacrifice their greenbelt for their own need, and that felt fundamentally unfair. And I don't think residents actually are anti-development, they are anti-unfairness. And I think that's the point that needs to be made. And I think that comes back to what is set out in the agenda about the new government's requirement, which increases our housing requirement by, I think it was 83%. That is a massive increase in our housing need. And County Councillor Condacor has alluded to the fact that I believe, and I would agree with him on this front, it's not often that we agree, that the way that it has been calculated, again, is fundamentally unfair on places like us, when we, in particular, only have 30 square miles as a borough council. It does give us some protection now that we've had the review, and that's set out in paragraph 4.15 against the new local housing need, but that will only take us up to July 2026. And I know that having sitting on the planning committee, that we have been told that we don't have we have a 5-year housing land supply, but not quite enough. And so we have some protection, but not the protection we need, and actually I think our residents deserve. And I hope that as a council we will continue to lobby against this dramatically unfair increase in the number of dwellings we have to take, because we don't have the infrastructure that goes with it, and it isn't necessarily our need, it's to accommodate others' need, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Has anybody got any points of clarification in wish to raise with Councillor Wilson? No. So it's been moved and seconded, the recommendations in section 2 of the report. So we vote on that, please? Okay, that's passed. Okay. So we're on now to item 7, infrastructure funding statement, and back over to you, Councillor Benson.
Thank you. Right, so I'd like to move the recommendations as laid out in section 2 regarding the infrastructure funding statement.
Councillor Benson, is that seconded? Councillor Price.
Yeah, we've got a serious problem with lack of infrastructure, and sometimes we collect money for infrastructure via the section 106 in these agreements. And there's a very big table in the appendix, which isn't attached other than the electronic, which shows lots of biodiversity offsetting, for example. And we're not actually spending that money yet. And we could, if we had the capacity, be spending it on both biodiversity offsetting and wetland creation. So we can actually do to look at some of our flooding problems by actually having offsetting that also stores water. So I know the Warwickshire Wildlife Trust are really keen on adding meanders and ponds along some of our watercourses. And we have places like Weddington, Attleborough, etc., where there is a lot of water comes down the various brooks, which we could store in wildlife areas. So I really hope we start spending that money. We have the money for cycling infrastructure, which I get told off when I use adjectives, but someone who's running Warwickshire County Council wants to give back to developers. And this is absolutely crazy. We have 25 people killed on Warwickshire roads a year, 300 odd seriously injured in road accidents. And we've got money from development and government in our infrastructure thing, which the leader of Warwickshire County Council wants us not to spend. I mean, you look at some of these things, and when we put a cycle lane in, it's also a lane that people can use for disabled buggies, people can walk on. They connect communities and new developments together with the existing areas in a safe way for people to travel. And I cannot express how strongly I'm angry at the potential of this infrastructure funding not happening. We also have the Borough Council supposed to give us a sports centre on Top Farm. That's on the infrastructure list. We're going to have a big bit of land, but no money will ever be available to build on it. We should have asked for half the land and more money so we can actually have something left. So there's lots and lots of things wrong. Obviously, yeah, schools and doctor surgeries, we get a bit of stuff, but it's not well spent and well planned. And GP surgeries, yeah, where's all the money going to the CCG ending up? We've not had a big GP surgery built in Weddington. We've had a little health centre conversion. And the town centre, yeah, this infrastructure money should be giving us or helping to give us a town centre health centre, which somewhere Grayson Place or Vicarage Street could be bringing us footfall. So it's really 2 out of 10. And I say we really need to do better on infrastructure because there's actually a lot of money, millions of pounds on these lists, and very little of it is actually doing much good for the residents. And people suffer the impacts of development, so we need some money back.
Thank you, Councillor on the court. Well, 2 out of 10. We obviously could do better, but perhaps you don't know, but we have asked for a thorough review of Section 106 money, which is happening at the moment. And indeed, one of the points you made is where you have a situation whereby the funding's running out, and if you don't spend it, you lose it, and that kind of thing. And in fact, we've identified 2 items are coming to council next week that fall into that category, haven't we? So it is being looked at seriously, and you're right, it does need looking at, and that's happening. Right, anybody else wish to say anything? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. So can we vote on that, please? Thank you very much. Yeah. Right, now the next item, item 8 on air quality management. In fact, I don't know, it was last week, the week before, some of us had a meeting with our counterparts at Warwickshire County Council on this whole issue. And as a result of that, there's some more research being done and work being done on this. So rather than look at a half a report, I'd like this to be deferred to January, if that's okay. Is everybody happy with that? Yes. Yes. Okay, so I'll propose it's deferred until January. Seconded. Yeah. Can we vote on that? Yeah. So that will come back in January. Right. It's all over to me, I think, next. So the next item, item 9, is the draft budget. Now, I'm well aware that accountants have to be extremely cautious and pessimistic when they look at all these things. And Vicky's done us proud on that front by being extremely cautious and pessimistic. And I must admit, when I first looked at this, I thought, oh, crikey. But a number of things here. First of all, can I say that as part of all this, I think I'm right in saying that we're going to be moving to a 3-year settlement position. Now, that is probably one of the best things that could have happened recently, because it enables us to plan properly for the future. Doesn't necessarily mean we only get any more money or whatever, but we do know where we're going with this. And local government's been bedeviled, in my view, with having to live from hand to mouth from year to year. And I think this will help a lot. I think the other thing worth pointing out is that the council tax base, it's one of the recommendations, has increased to from previously simply due to the housing growth and what have you. We say we could be £3.5 million down, but there are an awful lot of assumptions that are not covered in this. We don't know what the settlement is and what have you. And I don't want you to go away with the feeling that I'm treating this lightly or not bothering about the fact that we're going to be having to look for every penny next year. But I think we've got to now wait for the settlement and for the budget process to take place into January and February. So on that basis, then, I'm moving the recommendations in section 2 of the report. And I know that I've been particularly asked to emphasise recommendation 2.4, that the Cabinet notes and recommend to the full Council the approval of the Council tax base for 2026-27 increasing from 40,809.30 to 41,369 as per section 5.2 of the report, and the surplus of the Council tax fund detailed in paragraphs 5.2 and 5.3. And formally recommend those. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. We'll have Councillor Benson on that one.
Yeah, I've not got a lot to say on this, but it's really important, the growth in the council tax base, because it in addition to us raising our council tax by, say, 5%, if you get 1 or 2% more housing, that helps a lot actually developing a budget. But on the other side, more housing means you need more bin rounds and more collections, etc. So it's double-edged. And the other thing that happens is we have houses that are single occupancy and various empty houses which pay either half or nothing for a while, etc. So I do hope we're doing plenty of work on looking at those well, because everything we're not collecting on, or anyone fraudulently claiming it's one person per house or whatever. So there are areas we do need to have a good look at. And it is not easy being in local government when you keep getting more things put upon you. And it's really noticeable. We've got 41,000 as our council tax base, but we've got something like 57,000 houses. So the value of the houses here is significantly lower than Band D. So I'll leave it there, but say it's just keeping an eye on it and trying to get the amount collected as much as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Conacher. Anybody want to raise any points of clarity with no? Councillor Wilson. Right, thank you. On that basis, it's been moved and seconded. Can we have a vote on that, please? Thank you very much. That's approved. So it's me again now, General Fund Budget Monitoring, item 10. Right, so I'm a little bit frustrated with this. Not with the content of the report. The report's fine, and in fact, we were doing quite well. We were getting to a position whereby we could end up with a reasonably balanced budget, and I'm sure it will be sorted out in the end with the use of reserves and so on. But as Kevin knows, you know, it was very frustrating that we find out at the last minute that the substation by the new Pingles, where there's an enormous amount of work being done, great work being done to make the Pingles into what it is going to be. We find at the last minute that National Grid are saying it's not quite right. Goodness knows how they suddenly decided that at the last minute. They almost did the same thing with the Bedworth one, didn't they? And we seem to have been held to ransom by then. And it frustrates me. And of course, we haven't been able to open it as quickly as possible, and that's lost us some more money. So the majority of the overspend is down to that. The thought occurred to me, National Grid want us to put this stuff in, and yet we're paying for the electricity as well. So we seem to be sort of, being caught both ways. So just so that I'm not happy with that, but I know we can't do anything about it. But apart from that, then I'm moving the recommendation in section 2 of the report that the forecast outturn position for the general fund for 2025-26 be noted and consideration be given to the key variances which are in the report. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor King, thank you. Councillor Conacher.
There's lots of details like Appendix 1 that lists all sorts of variances, but what we don't have any visibility on is what the hotel subsidy is for the year and things like that, because obviously we built it for 16 to 20 million. In the early years, it actually doesn't get to the point where it balances its books probably until it gets a critical mass and inflation erodes the value of the loan effectively. And the hotel and the cinema stuff isn't really reflected in the budget position, whereas they will actually have a material impact. So I'm disappointed in that. There is lots of things where the future is uncertain, particularly with local government reform, etc. So it's how much stuff we do and what contracts we have and how long they are. But yeah, I'm really wanting to sweat our assets, and I keep saying we should have sold the hotel or sold shares in the hotel to de-risk that and take it off our forecast. And then what happens with our income from the business rates, because obviously there's a revaluation and lots going on with government there. So that will drastically change things. I hope for the better, but it's interesting you've revalued Harefield Road or got some money back from that. And if we have different revaluations, we can actually get discounts. And one of the things I don't know if we still do, we actually pay business rates on the Nuneaton market, which seems bizarre, but because it's a business, there was business rates chargeable on the market as an asset. And if we're trying to revalue and get those down as the market shrank.
Thank you, Councillor Conacher. Anybody, any points of clarification with Councillor Conacher? No, Councillor. Right, thank you for that. So on that basis, it's been moved and seconded. So can we vote on the recommendation, please? Thank you. That's approved. Right, item 11. In Chris's absence, I will, when I can find the report, I will. Basically, all I can do on this one is to formally move the recommendations in section 2 of the report. Can I have a seconder on that, please? Councillor Benson, Councillor Conacher.
Yeah, it mentions non-dwelling rents going up quite a bit, which is good. 131,000 extra. I hope some of that is renting out more garages. And I keep mentioning garages because a garage that's empty for a year is zero income, and we had a big queue of people waiting for garages. So I do hope on the HRA we are trying to get our garages back into use or demolished if they're definitely not going to be salvageable from their state.
Councillor Condon, any points of clarification? No. Councillor, no. So on that basis, it's been moved and seconded. So can we vote on that? Yeah, that's approved. Thank you. And then item 12, back to me again. The capital monitoring report again on this. I'm just going to move the recommendations in section 2 of the report. And can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor King, Councillor Condacor.
Yeah, yet again, you've got Grace and Place in the list of capital projects, and it's not broken out into different parts. It's really nice to know how much the cinema costs, the hotel costs, and because it's a multi-year project, and some things are complete and some things are moving on. It'd be nice if the capital program actually broke it down with a little bit of detail to see how each bit is going. I assume the e-mobility hub is the charging points that we were required to put in before the hotel opened that still aren't there. So I'll keep reminding you that we should have enforcement action against the hotel for not having EV charging points in as the planning condition said. If we're asking developers, when you build something, you need so many EV charging points, how do we build a hotel and have it running for a year without the EV charging points there? It's got it marked on the tarmac, but it's another thing we've messed up on. And yeah, it'd be good to get the Bedworth markets, things like that going, because yeah, we need a bit of a lift and a bit more footfall. Yeah, I say lots of things on here are positive things. Yeah, you just want them sooner and at better value. And the parking machines, people are moaning about them at various things. It is nice to have newer parking machines, but apparently they haven't got keypads on. So if your contactless card wants you to insert cards, there's all sorts of teething problems, and it'd be nice to look at that and see if we've got any money just to at least have one or two parking machines that can be a bit smarter and solve some of those issues, and maybe one that takes coins somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Any points of clarification with Councillor Condacor? No. Thank you. So on that basis, the recommendations have been moved and seconded. Can we have a vote on that, please? Thank you. That's approved. So moving on then to item 13, Pride in Place Impact Fund, Councillor King.
To move the recommendations for 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3.
Okay, we have a seconder for that. Councillor Vincent, Councillor Condacor.
Yeah, really good. We've got some money again. I hope it's spent wisely. I hope we don't have any rubbish public art like the county council putting in some places. And can we please have some trees? They actually lift people's spirits, suck up some of the water, and particularly if we're taking out various buildings and got various projects going on, to actually green up the town centre would actually, I think, increase footfall. So trees, trees and trees. Yeah, it really is the sort of thing where it can improve footfall.
Thank you, Councillor Condor. Any points of clarification? No. Councillor Wilson. Yeah, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is good to see additional funding coming in for our town centres to try and liven them up and improve them where we can. What I am concerned about is the proposed split of 60-40 to Nuneaton and Bedworth, because there is no mention in there, either that or in section 14 about other options considered about Bulkington, because Bulkington is a large village. It is the largest. I mean, the alleged claim is, I don't know how true it is, but it is local folklore that it is the largest village in the country. It is certainly one of the largest villages, if not the largest, in Warwickshire, and it has quite a big village centre of its own. And I do believe that it should see some of the funding coming to it. It hasn't been able to have a lot of the big stuff that has happened in the past because it's required, that has been about big transformation projects, whereas this is more about little but smaller and more numerous pieces which could help liven it up here and there. And I think it would be good to see some of that spent in Bulkington as well, because I think the residents of Bulkington, sometimes they feel left out, especially after other budget decisions which have been made, which have impacted on it as well. So I would hope that the Cabinet would either confirm that Bulkington is envisaged to be as part of Bedworth's 40% allocation, because it used to be part of the old Bedworth UDC, or that they would consider an amendment. I know I can't propose it, but I can suggest that you consider it, that you suggest a split of 60-30-10, so that Bulkington gets 10%, which is probably more in accordance with the population division and the housing division of the borough, because actually more of the housing, because of all the recent developments we've had over the past 10-15 years, have been in Nuneaton, so it's more like a 70-30 split. If you look at where the housing has happened, but I think Bulkington deserves some funding too, and I hope that you would take 10% out of the Bedworth allocation of 40% and put 10% aside for Bulkington. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'm not going to try and agree anything tonight in detail on that. I do understand what you're saying. In my view, Bulkington is part of the Nuneaton allocation. Because Bulkington is a ward in Nuneaton, but that's something I think we need to that's something we need to consider. But I do take your point. Okay, yeah, Councillor King.
I can confirm that Bulkington is part of the Bedworth split.
Right, there we are. So that's how. But the point you make is understood. I understand the point you're making. You want to come back?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair, and I thank Councillor King for that clarification. But as we all know, and it happens with how local government goes, that things can get vired and moved and forgotten about. I would ask that serious consideration is given to actually formally amending it so it is explicit that Bulkington gets that funding of at least 10% out of that 10% split for it, and Bedworth is adjusted accordingly so that it looks fair. Because if you just read this, it doesn't look fair, and I accept your word, but that isn't actually the policy you are voting through tonight. On the paper it is written on, that is not the policy.
I don't think you're going to let us forget about Bulkington going forward, but we will look at that. I'm not going to take that as an amendment tonight. Councillor King?
We will consider Bulkington and proposals. I'd like proposals to come forward and what Bulkington would like, because actually, I spent the day in Bulkington on Remembrance Day. I actually really appreciated the streets, and I could see why the councillors are very passionate about Bulkington.
Yeah. So apart from that, any points of clarification for Councillor Wilson? No. So it's been proposed and seconded. We vote on that. Agree it? Yeah. Thank you very much. So moving on then to Empty Homes Probate Concession Services contract, Councillor King.
Move the recommendations in 2.1 and 2.2.
Thank you, Councillor King. Is that seconded? Councillor Benson, Councillor Condacourt.
No, this is all great. I don't need to say anything else.
Thank you, Chair. It looks great in principle, but as with everything, the devil is in the detail. And I have to admit, when I first read the report, I was taken back to, the unpleasant days off sick from work with daytime TV. And I don't know if anyone remembers the old show of Air Hunters, where people would go through the Bonaventure list and try and find the nearest and dearest who had a stake on their estate, and then those companies would then sign them up, and they would take a percentage, which I assume is basically a similar proposal to what is going through here. But that does not preclude someone who is smart and savvy from being alerted to that fact and then not signing up with the company and doing it themselves. So it would be interesting to know in more detail, and I'm not expecting it tonight, but if you could arrange, Chair, for perhaps some further details to be circulated to all councillors about the exact funding arrangement, because there will come a point, if too many people do that, it won't be commercially advantageous for whoever we sign up to do it. And then it will defeat the point of what you're trying to pass tonight, which I think is a very good aim, Chair. I'm not denying that. But we all know that there are people who will try and circumvent things, and I don't blame them if it means that they save 15% on an estate, which would be theirs if it wasn't for the fact this air hunting company had come round and knocked on their door and took 15% or plus. So I think just for reassurance, it would be interesting if officers could provide a bit more detail about the actual mechanics of the funding arrangement. I accept it is net zero cost to us, which is great, but we actually want to see the final aim come to fruition. And the business may pull out if it's not in accordance with their business interests. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Wilson, you got to come back on that, Councillor King?
No, at the minute it's all a new process, so it's just a new learning
when we've
curve
got-
at the moment.
So when we've got that detail, it's okay, we can circulate it. So they're saying yes, so we'll do that. Any other points of clarification for Councillor Wilson? No, so it's been moved and seconded, so we can put that to the vote. Thank you, that's approved. Item 15, recommendations from OSPs, there aren't any. And then we have got any other business or additional item, and you weren't able to be there, you weren't well, but there was a meeting of the Civic Honours Subcommittee, which was held on the 26th of November, and a recommendation has been put forward for Cabinet approval. And that recommendation is this, isn't it, Tom? Yes. So I'll read it out. It is recommended to Cabinet to endorse the head of paid service to refer any nomination to an extraordinary full council scheduled for Wednesday, the 28th of January 2026, for the purpose of voting on nominations of honorary freemen of the borough. So I will propose that. To have a seconder. Councillor Venson, Councillor Condacore.
Yeah, we've got quite a few different honours. So is this just for honorary freemen, or because we've got some other honours we talk about for the honours committee? So, and also, where's the public engagement again? Are we calling for new suggestions or not? So a bit of clarification would be useful.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, so the public nomination process has already taken place. That was referred to the Civic Honours Subcommittee on the date the Chair has read out. The Civic Honours Committee has made its decision and therefore is referring to the relevant panel, in this case the full council, to make that decision, because full council has the decision in terms of legislation to grant the titles that the Chair has explained. So hopefully that clarifies, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I fully support the nominations going forward. I suppose if I have to, I'll declare an interest that I was a seconder for one of the proposed nominees that went through on that. The only thing, because this is a subcommittee of Cabinet that was set up when I was leader, and I'm thankful that you've kept it going, is what it would be interesting perhaps for you to submit a future report about what happens to our honorary aldermen and freemen in light of proposed local government reorganisation, because their honours would be from what would then be the old Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, and I don't know. I assume it's happened elsewhere, but it would be interesting to know what happens to those honours, whether they get subsumed into Freedom of Warwickshire or North Warwick Borough North Warwick Unitary Council or whatever, because we're honouring people quite rightly, and it would be nice to know that those honours will carry on and will continue to be recognised after we may be abolished, absorbed, whatever, taken over, if certain councillors have their way.
So at the appropriate time, Matt, can we, or do you know the answer to it now? No. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I am happy to move that report goes back to the committee. Can I have a seconder for that, please? That's Councillor Price. So that's been moved and seconded. You agreed? There you are, Councillor Wilson. Right. And we've got to go through the decision. Yeah, and it's also been moved and seconded about the going to the extraordinary council meeting. So can we have a vote on that? All agreed? Yeah. So that's through as well. Okay. And I think, unless I'm sadly mistaken, that is it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.